Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen connecting with us from all over the world. My name is Reina Ubera, Project Officer at ITU, and it's a great pleasure. I welcome you all to the STI Forum Side event on building the pathway to sustainable digital transformation. This webinar is being jointly organized by ITU and the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority. This webinar is part of the ITU's webinar series on digital transformation. I see many participants connected today, and I look forward to your active participation during our discussion. I invite you all to drop a quick message in the chat box icon seen at the bottom of your screen, stating your name and the country from which you are connecting from. Today, the session aims to directly address and highlight the promising development in science, technology, and innovation for accelerating progress towards the SDGs, in particular SDG 7, SDG 12, and SDG 13 on climate action. We will explore how the ICT sector can help accelerate sustainable digital transformation at all levels to help us reach net zero and the sustainable development goals. We have an excellent list of panelists for today's discussion. Without further delay, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Onoe-san, Director of the Telecommunication Standardization Bureau, to give his opening remarks.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues and friends, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this STI Forum 2023 side event, jointly organized with the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority on building the pathway to sustainable digital transformation. And this event also forms the 23rd episode of the ITU webinar series on digital transformation. And I will encourage to review the previous webinar series and collaborate with us on the future episodes. We are brought together today by our shared commitment to addressing the challenges brought on by climate change and the need to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. The clock is ticking, the need for the global action is urgent. We need to act now and sustain that action to ensure that tangible steps are taken to combat climate change. Our discussion today are especially relevant to SDG 7, affordable and green energy, SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, and SDG 13, climate action. These SDGs are key to securing the sustainable future for us, living today as well as future generations. Digital technologies are increasingly prominent in our daily lives, calling for careful consideration of their environmental and social impact. It is highly important that we look at supply chain hospitality to ensure their sustainability. This will demand circular practices, responsible e-waste management, and energy-efficient low-carbon solutions. International standards can help us to achieve sustainable digital transformation on a global scale. Technical standardization is a collaborative process driven by experts from all around the world. Working together, experts build consensus on the actions necessary to ensure that digital technologies and business practices are safe, reliable, and sustainable. ITU has delivered a wide range of standards addressing all aspects of the value chain. These standards are helping industry and government to consider sustainability at all levels, from design and manufacturing through to procurement, use, and disposal. Today, we will look at how digital technologies and supporting international standards can advance sustainability across our economies. We will also gain expert insight on the latest developments in green network and innovation to achieve the ambitious objective of net zero emissions. I thank you all very much for joining us and wish you every success in your work to contribute to the sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Many thanks, Mr. Onoa-san, for your opening remarks. Thank you for bringing this aspect today. Now, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Charles Gahungu, General Manager of ICT Regulation of the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, to give us also his opening remarks. Mr. Gahungu, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this opportunity. Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this virtual event. First of all, I wish to express my gratitude to Seizo Oneo, who have just given his opening remarks, the Director, Telecommunication Standardization Bureau, ITU, Dominique Wogers, Chairman of ITU Static Group 5, Paulo Gema, the Chairman of Working Party 2 of this working group, all panelists, distinguished guests online, organizers of this event. In 2015, the United Nations adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, also known as the Global Goals, as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and assure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Affordable and clean energy, which is the 7th goal. As the population continues to grow, the demand for cheap energy and an economy reliant on fossil fuel is creating drastic changes to our climate. Since December 2019, the world was also paralyzed by COVID-19 pandemic, also known as the coronavirus pandemic. For accelerating the recovery from the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, and the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at all levels, IT, together with the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, have jointly organized the Science, Technology and Innovation STI Forum 2023 Side event with the topic, Building the Pathway to Sustainable Digital Transformation. This session that is taking place now on this 2nd May is part of the ITU webinar series on digital transformation. Over the past few years, science, technology, and innovation have become a necessary reality. However, digitization and sustainability are often viewed as mutually exclusive. As the global climate crisis persists, sustainability and digital transformation are well positioned to be seen as complementary growth drivers. Sustainable digital transformation has many foundational elements such as circular economy, greening digital networks, and the efficiency of information and communication technologies, ICTs, that drive change. Having all of these pieces together can accelerate the progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, reduce greenhouse gas emission, and ultimately achieve global agreements and commitments. The objectives of this session are to address and highlight the promising developments in science, technology, and innovation for accelerating progress towards SDG, in particular, the SDG 7, which is the affordable and clean energy, aiming to assure clean and more efficient energy. SDG 12, which states responsible consumption and production, aiming to assure the efficient management of our shared natural resources and the way we dispose of toxic waste and pollutants. Of course, also we have to discuss on the SDG 13, which is the climate action, aiming to avoid global warming. The second objective of this session is to explore how the ICT sector can help accelerate sustainable digital transformation at all levels. The third is to provide an overview of the importance of circular products and the circular economy. The fourth, which is not the least, is to describe the advancements made in greening digital networks, followed by a discussion on how the ICT sector can reach net zero and production. It is with this reason that I believe this session is very important and will definitely contribute to the welfare of people worldwide. To close, I wish to extend a profound thank you to all participants. Now is the time for us to discuss and on how to building the pathway to sustainable digital transformation. I wish you a successful session. Thank you, and God bless you.
Many thanks, Mr. Gahungu. I see some people connected from Bangladesh, Madagascar, India, Tanzania, Mauritius, Trinidad and Tobago. Please feel free to write your name in the chat. Where are you connecting from? We want to interact with you. We want to know where are you connecting. If there is any people also from the Americas, more people from Africa, please feel free. I see people from Ecuador, and also feel free also to share with your social network about this event that will be also recorded. So if there's someone that cannot be here with us, they can see the recording. So before we delve in today's discussion, please take note of how the session will run. All questions from the audience will be taken during the question and answer session after all presentations have been delivered. Participants can submit their question by typing in the question and answer icon seen at the bottom of your screen. Kindly note that the event is being recorded and the recording will be made available on the event website. All the presentation materials will also be available on the website after the event. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Dominique Vouget, Chairman of ITUT Study Group 5 on Environment, Climate Change, and Circular Economy, to give the keynote presentation on international standards paving the way towards a sustainable digital transformation. Dominique is currently the chairman of ITUT Study Group 5, and he also serves as the Director of Institutional Relations for Standardization at Orange. He has responsibility for relationships with international organizations involved in standardization activities at national and international level and participates in the governance meeting of this organization. Dominique, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Raina. Can you see my slides, please, on the screen?
Yes, but not in presentation mode yet.
Oh, yes, I have to change that, apologize. And so in the meantime, just to say hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are. Just give me one couple of minutes. It's not okay. Yes, so now it should be in presentation mode.
It is. Thank you so much, yeah. Dominique.
Okay, I can almost see. Okay, so well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening everywhere. I see people connecting everywhere. And so thanks also to ITUT Director, Mr. Onwe-san, and from our colleague, Mr. Gaungo Charles from Rwanda for the introduction to that important session. My keynote speech today will be dedicated only on one theme, on try to explain why international and how international standards can help achieving the sustainable digital transformation. And we think we do have a specific role, as we heard in the introduction speech. We are committed to act urgently, and within Study Group 5, we are convinced that our role can be key at this for this work. So what is digital transformation? Just to explain, digital transformation, in our view, is the process of integrating digital technology into all aspects of a sector in order to better connect with people, improve efficiency, and create new opportunities. As we can think, ICT sector is really important as it helps to connect all the people together. And in that role, ICT will have let's say, a very specific task to be committed to achieve this digital transformation. This digital transformation is also a critical strategy to stay competitive in the digital age. I guess everybody is aware, but in our common life, that impacts not only the progress of technology, but helps to establish communication between people, communications between companies, helps to exchange data. We do develop also this technology of the ICT sectors is developing Internet of Things, automation, artificial intelligence that can have an impact on all what is related to networking. So, yes. The digital transformation we believe is really important for sustainability. It affects really various sectors, and it helps first to make our economy circular by closing the loops of material and energy flow. It also helps to reduce the environmental impacts by optimizing resources use and reducing waste. It does also increase energy efficiency and build a cleaner future. And at the end, also it helps to, I cannot come back, to have an impact on some other activities. Let's say, to summarize it, that the sustainability in the ICT sector is a priority for all. I guess we are all convinced, but it's important to recall that. It is a priority for the actors of the value chain, for the operators, the vendors, the policymaker. All these people have made or have announced ambitious energy efficiency and emission targets, and that is the basis of our work. The ICT sector, the sustainability aspect also includes for the ICTs energy efficiency, gas or CO2 reductions, and waste and e-waste management. So it is important, let's say, that in all phases of the ICT product cycle, beginning from the building and ending to the disposal of material via the deployment and the use, we take into account that sustainability, digital transformation. In addition to that, also our way is, let's say, based on a very high-level framework, and it is important for the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Some of them have been mentioned in the opening speech. We do focus on many of them. I will not quote all of them, but you can see that all our ICT technology, is it the connectivity technology, 5G, the digitalizations with the big data, the new technology, blockchains, or the digital twins, or Internet of Things, they all do have, at one point or another, a link with the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals do impact, in fact, our activities in various sectors. We are concerned by the clean water. Some technology will help to have a better water production. By the Sustainable Development Goals number 7, the affordable and clean energy. Number 11 related to the sustainable cities and communities. Number 9, which is not on the screen, the industry, innovation and infrastructure. As we do develop a network, it is also very important. Number 12, the responsible consumption mentioned by your colleague Charles. Number 13, which is our general goal related to climate actions. I can also add the partnerships for these goals and the responsible consumption, and also some new developments regarding the biodiversity with the Sustainable Development Goals number 14 related to the life below the water, and 15, the life on land. We are within the ICT particularly concerned because of the double nature of our sector. Our sector is, let's say, one part of the problem, but is also one part of the solution. We do have a double nature, nature. ICT, let's say, on the first part, ICT's current share of global green gas emissions represents, depending on the study, something like 1.8 to 2.8 of global GHG emission. That is based on various calculations, including the network aspects and things like that. My colleagues will develop further. But on the other hand, ICTs can also have a positive impact to minimize the negative effect. And it is considered that the ICTs have the potential to slash global green gas effects by 20% by 2030. So let's say in the next 7 years, and this is compared to 2020. And this is also something that is really important to have in mind, because everybody has in mind also that the use of digital technology is going to increase, and that in that way, our sector do play a specific role. In that context, the work we are doing within study group 5, and let's say more globally, not only ITU, but also some other standard development organization, and I will come back on this point later, is really important as the standards can help achieving the sustainable digital transformation. So how do they do that? They do it first by providing some guidelines, some recommendations for the cities and the government, let's say all what is public action. This is the case for some recommendations that are related to the reductions of carbon emissions, to achieve a sustainable digital transformation, to improve the uptake of green energy, and on a global scale, because this is the link between the Sustainable Development Goal, to achieve the targets set in the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. In addition to that, our recommendations provide also some direct link to for the ICT sectors. And this is in helping in developing some technical guidance to implement green energy solutions, but also, and it is really important, to provide some measurement tools to evaluate progress. And we made a big work on that also, because it's very important to all use the same measurement tools to make some progress. Some concrete actions are also related to the way to bring low-cost connectivity to rural areas. And of course, our general target is related to reach the net zero goal, which is really the basis of our work. So we do that within our standards. Let's say the standards help to measure improvement performance, inform policies, but also develop best practice and provide specific guidelines. The work we are doing within ITUT, first, for people who are not familiar with the ITU, which is the International Telecommunication Organization, is carried within the study group 5 of the ITUT sector. But just one quick word on what ITU is, and let's say in a nutshell, ITU can be considered as a multi-stakeholder platform, because we do associate member states. So let's say on a large scale, all members of the world, or more or less all of them, are members of the ITU. But also, and that is something unique and specific to the UN system, because ITU is a member of is a United Nations specialized agency. It is one of the rare, if not the unique, organization allowing direct participation to private membership. That means companies, organizations, in our sectors, mainly operators, manufacturers, and others, and they bring directly their views to the development of these standards. And in addition to that, also, we do have academia member, and this is also an important point because they bring us some different angle to elaborate some standards, including in some ways civil society views, including the research activities and many other things like that, which are important as we all do share the same aim, the same goal on the net zero. Our work is based on a strategic plan which tries to support this sustainable, strives to support this sustainable digital transformation and the universal connectivity. But just to say that ITU in that field and in the domain of ICT is really, in France, we do say the incontournable, let's say the body you cannot do without. Within ITU, the work is carried by the study group I'm chairing, which is the study group 5. And this is, let's say, a very old study group, which has increased its fields of activities. We began some, let's say, 30 years ago by working on electronic magnetic compatibility, lightning protections, and things like that. Some work has been done on electronic magnetic fields, on soft errors caused by particle radiations, on human exposure to electronic magnetic field. And now, and let's say we have been maybe the first, we included in our activities all what is related to environment, to climate actions, and to the sustainable digitalization and circular economy. So this topic has gained momentum, has increased in importance in our work. And now we have two working parties working in particular on circular economy and waste management, and on all what is related to the environment, the energy efficiency, the clean energy, and the sustainable digital transformation for climate actions. In some, you can see here on the slides the same approach, let's say, giving on this work, but just to say that these sustainable digital technologies can bring efficiency for e-waste management. We do have some standards to help sustainable e-waste management systems, recycling procedures, and to move to circular economy. The circular economy, we developed a lot of material related to the designing, and because it's important at the elaboration of a standard to include the design and take into account that a green aspect. We do work on green energy efficiency, on green networks and data center also, and the global emissions on ICT sectors by providing detailed trajectories, best practice, and targets to help the ICT sectors move towards the decarbonization and this net zero goal. In details, we do produce, it is not called standards, but we do produce recommendations, that is the ITU word for standards, related on all these aspects. So I do not develop them. You can find them on the ITU website, but for circular design criteria, for example, it is the recommendation, so let's say a standard called L.1023. For assessing GHG emission, there is a famous one dedicated on, it is L.1410. For assessing the energy efficiency for networks, we do have a series of them, beginning by the 13. These standards, all these recommendations are dedicated to the transition to the net zero. We also elaborate some materials for the public procurer, and there is one recommendation, 1061, addressing specifically the needs for the public, the circular public procurement. And this also develops how to reduce e-waste, support the shift to net zero, recycling the recyclability. So let's say, to come back to our initial target, we say ICTs have a potential to slash global greenhouse gas emission by 20% by 2030. And this is really important because our standards can bring can really be one of the core pieces to achieve that. Recently, and it's only 3 months ago in December, we have adopted a very important piece related to that work, which is the standard, the recommendation or standard 1480, enabling the net zero transition, which describe on assessing how the use of information and communication technologies of the ICT solutions impact greenhouse gas emissions for the other sectors. And this is a really also an important point, because we believe that the sustainable digital technologies can bring efficiency improvement also for the other sectors. We can improve the energy efficiency, reduce pollution, and even enable service. Everybody's aware, for example, for remote working, for smart grids, smart cities. And in that recommendation, we assess, for example, how and, the impact of a virtual event can assess the, the net zero transition. We do describe several steps. So, for example, there are 6 steps from the definition of a goal until the critical review. And in the meantime, we need to define the scoping, the time, the modeling, data collections. We do interpret the result. There are proposals to help the sector to do that. So it's, let's say, some kind of a methodology to help the sector to do that by assessing this goal. The impact of that work, and as we are working on within the ICT sectors and basically on connectivity, the impact is very great for the other sectors that we call the verticals, and digital solutions can enable the net zero transition for different verticals. Is it manufacturing? Is it banking? Is it construction technology, energy utilities, and things like that? We think really that ICTs are enabling the sustainable development goals through the global standards. And global standards is the key for the convergence of ICT and vertical industry, enabling the sustainable development goals into realities. So as I say, for vertical industry, it's the case with some specific industry, such as manufacturing, but also at the beginning for sectors for the ICTs, the device, the transmission part, the process and storing part, and the connectivity, as these connectivities does impact all these sectors. Is it 4G, 5G, is it optical networks, wireless LANs, or what else? And of course, in the middle, the storing of the processing. To be very humble, we do not work alone. ITU is part of a global ecosystem, and everybody on the planet is concerned. And that's why it is important to establish some collaborations with all people which do share the same goal and try to act to achieve the net zero goal. So, of course, as part of the UN system, ITUT and SDG 5 is embedded in some collaboration across other UN agencies. UNFCCC, for example, is very famous, but also the UN Environment Program, we do whatever. But we do also some work with some other standards development organizations. ISO, ISC, ETSI. For example, with ETSI, we do develop joint technically aligned standards with the same process. We do work with industry, explaining the participation of work. This is done with the GSMA, for example, which is famous with JZ or so important. And as Reina mentioned, I see many people coming or attending from developing countries. We do have regional groups. We do have one for Africa, one for the Arabic region, one for Asian Pacific, one for Latin America, and which are active and in the work of the Study Group 5. And this is really important because on a general point of view, that helps us to bridge the standardization gap, but also it is important because it helps to bring the sustainability issues to the attentions at the regional level. Let's say also we do not only act globally, but let's say some of our work, it's some part of our contribution to act locally. And this global cooperation for ICT standards, let's say, is a multilateral corporations, and this helps this multilateral cooperation across the standards development process, which is not only focused on the development of standards, but also includes some work on the, let's say, standardization collaborations. For example, by the development of alliances, you have some of them from the industry here. So that includes the research part. So we do collaborate on the establishment of the standards and on their implementations. Is it through test bed, to block test, to interoperability test, and most of them to share the experience, to share some pilots, some trials, and let's say in particular, this is important for developing countries. To come back to the support on the sustainable development goals, I mentioned some of them, but here are some more practical examples. For example, we do work, and this is done with some public authorities, also the European Commission, which is currently developing the digital product passport. The digital product passport is typically an example of supporting sustainable development goals number 9. On industry innovation and infrastructure, on sustainable and support the sustainable development goal, the SDG goal number 12, on the responsible consumption, sustainable digital transformation, guidance on simplified life cycle assessment of ICTs. And this is directly related to SDG 13, in addition to the previous one, dedicated on climate actions. On the GHG emissions, so here again, SDG goals number 7 or 13, and something pretty new, and that has recently been taken on board in relationship with the Sustainable Development Goals number 14 on life below water and 15 on life on land. We introduce also in our work some work items on ICT and biodiversity, And this is in relationship with some international conferences, in particular the last one having taken place in Canada. This biodiversity work and to see how ICT can also have an impact on this. So let's say that is in a nutshell what could be my presentation of the study group 5 activities. Some of the working party chair or let's say rapporteur, Paolo, Leandro, will be speakers later and come back in more details on the work they do within their respective areas of activities. So just to finish and to conclude, let's say everybody you do attend, I invite you to join our activities, to join us in that journey to achieve that net zero. We are part of the various international events. I mentioned countries in Africa. There will be a Sustainable Digital Transformation Week, let's say soon, next week. We are part on the global scale of the WSIS process, and you can see we do participate in sessions dedicated to biodiversities or on sustainable batteries. And concerning our own activities, we will have our plenary meeting in France. So I'm happy to invite you to join us in France on the French Riviera to 23rd of June. So that will conclude my presentation here. Let's say we are all happy. We believe that we do have the same goal, which is to decrease the carbon footprint. We are convinced that the greener ICT standards can play a key role for the energy saving of products and for the green energy in general. So thank you very much for your attention. And I let you know in the hand of Reina and other speakers to go into details for these activities. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Dominique. Many thanks for this very interesting presentation. I hope you all have learned a little bit more how standards can support a sustainable digital transformation, as mentioned by Dominique, by providing overarching frameworks, requirements, measure and improve performance, define objectives and priorities. So, so far, I don't see any question for you, Dominique. So thank you so much for this great presentation. I hope that because, well, I am a bit biased here because I love study group 5. So, but I hope people can join us, can learn more and can ask. And something that is very nice of ITUT study group 5, that all the recommendations, all the standards, they are free of charge, available on the website. So please feel free, if there is any standard that you would like to check, just go to the website, and if you have any question, you can always contact Dominique or the Secretariat. Now, I would like to give the... Go ahead.
You, Reina, yes, as a counselor of study group 5, so special thanks to you. You are the counselor of that study group. So let's say the focal point everybody should have in and contact. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now let us start, because in this session, this discussion is very exciting about the building the pathway to sustainable digital transformation. We have great speakers, and but I will give that to our moderator of this session, Ms. Anita Batamulisa, who is Senior Officer in charge of e-waste management, Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, to moderate this session. Anita is serving as the Senior Officer in charge of e-waste management at RURA since 2009, is member of EACO Working Group 7 on e-waste management and green ICTs. She's Associate Rapporteur of ITUT Study Group 5, focal point on extended producer responsibility at Rwanda, and supported by ITU UNEP and Secretariat of EACO National Steering Committee on E-Waste Management. Anita, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I give you the floor to moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Reina, for giving me a floor. I'm called Anita Batamulisa from Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority. He has already mentioned all my details, but I'm going to moderate this session, building the pathway to sustainable digital transformation. And allow me to present the speakers of this session. The first speaker is David Jassen. David Jensen is the coordinator of the Digital Transformation Program at the United Nations Environment Program, and is going to present a general overview of the importance of digital transformation, the involvement of all regions, and highlighting some of the challenges and opportunities. Welcome, David, and we have only maximum 10 minutes. You should time yourself, check your watch. The floor is yours. You're welcome, David.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. Let me share my screen and start my timer. I'm hoping everybody can see that. So thank you, colleagues. I'm trying to provide kind of a 1,000-foot overview. Can you hear me?
Yes, David, we can hear you. And
perfect. So I'm trying to provide that 50,000-foot overview in terms of the relationship between sustainability and digital transformation. I'll talk about the current state of play, some of the challenges, and some of the major opportunities at the international level. Now, the starting point for these remarks is really a recognition that we are living at a pivotal moment in time when two of the greatest transformations in human history are underway. On the one hand, we have digital transformation with a global reach. It's disrupting all sectors. It's creating new geopolitics. And on the other hand, we have the sustainability transformation, which has its economic, social, and environmental implications. And really the greatest challenge we now have, the greatest collective challenge, is connecting these two transformations into a twin transition, meaning that digital must be sustainable and sustainability must be enabled through digital technologies. And this is the grand challenge we now face. Now, why is this so important? Well, fundamentally, digital technologies are changing the way that we live, consume, entertain, and relate to each other. And they're fundamentally shaping our perceptions of reality and our very humanity. Let me give you a few statistics to reinforce just how global and how important and how influential they now are. If you look at human behavior, you're now spending an average of 8,000 days in front of our screens. That's 21 years of our lives being influenced by the material on a screen. There's about 2 billion of us who are now shopping online, being influenced by advertisements and algorithms to buy more and more products. There's about 3 billion of us playing online games and interacting in a gaming environment. And there's about 4 billion of us interacting and sharing ideas at a global scale on social media. So the question really is, how do we start to proactively harness and guide the development of these technologies to contribute to our global sustainability goals? These are the major digital influence channels of our time, and we have to tap into the power of them. Now, the Secretary General himself has identified the governance of digital technologies as one of his core priorities. You've probably seen the various documents that he's put in place, starting with the Age of Digital Interdependence, the first report that he launched, followed up by the Digital Roadmap for Cooperation, and followed up by our Common Agenda. And each of these is really looking at how do we start to govern these technologies for good. But the next big milestone on the agenda is called the Global Digital Compact, and that is planned for 2024. And this is really meant to be a process where UN agencies, governments, private sector, civil society come together to agree on shared principles and governance frameworks for an open, free, and secure digital future for all. So it's a fundamental framework for governing these technologies going forward. Big opportunity. But all the conversations that are happening around the world right now, that at least I have seen, are addressing or failing to address the issue that we're talking about today, this massive gap with respect to sustainability. So if you look at the dialogues right now, there are kind of 9 issues which are on the table systematically in these conversations. And I've put the 9 on the screen, and you'll notice there's one missing. Of course, that is the whole question of digital sustainability. And of course, as was mentioned by Dominique, there are these 2 sides we have to begin to think through. On the one hand, How do we accelerate the sustainable digitalization? How do we make our ICT green? And on the other hand, how do we use digitalization to enable sustainability? And both of these sides of the coin are equally important. So Dominique spoke about these, but let me just unpack them a bit more. What are the core issues that we see from the UN Environment Program? If we look at side one, sustainable digitalization, how do we start to minimize the environmental risks and impacts of digital tech? We need to look at 5 areas: the energy, greenhouse gas, and water footprint of ICTs. I've thrown up statistics there, which Dominique already mentioned, but indeed there are some significant effects and impacts on the environment and on climate from digital technologies. In terms of metals and rare earth minerals, we're looking at huge increases in demand for key essential elements, looking at 24 different elements that we needed, and the environmental impacts of mining and processing those elements need to be taken into account. Pollution and e-waste from the sector, probably seen some of these statistics, but 53 million metric tons per year of e-waste is generated. Only about 17% is recycled, and only 40 countries actually have regulations on e-waste. The spread of misinformation, right? Misinformation is spreading around 6 times faster than facts, 70% more likely to be shared, and there is a lot of information around environment and climate that needs to be mitigated. And then finally, ICTs can actually create rebound effects and drive hyperconsumption. I mentioned already that about 62% of advertising sales have shifted into the digital realm, and we are now being bombarded to buy more and more products and services from digital algorithms. So those are side one issues that we have to take into account. And then the side two is more positive. How do we start to harness digital transformation to really enable and accelerate environmental solutions? And again, I like to think about kind of 5 impact apps, right? The killer apps that we need to start developing. The first is using digital tools to really monitor and model environmental and climate systems and emissions in near real time. We need to get a state-of-the-art planetary dashboard up and running where we start to monitor the various vital signs of the planet in near real time. Dominique talked about this already, but I'll repeat it. Using these tools to achieve full supply chain transparency and circularity, meaning using them to calculate the environment and climate footprint of a product across the supply chain and across its full life cycle. Using them to automate sustainability decisions and optimize natural resources. We're talking here about smart cities, smart buildings, smart homes, smart appliances, using these tools to allow those applications to automate decisions around sustainability. We're talking about supporting more participatory environmental governance and more effective legal enforcement. And probably my favorite one, empowering consumers to adopt more sustainable lifestyles and behaviors through techniques such as digital nudging, gamification. So those are the positive sides we have to take into account. Now, what's happening at the country level? What we see, we have about 60 countries that are adopting digital transformation strategies, which is good. But we see that there's only kind of a partial recognition about environmental sustainability. There's a tendency to look at only one side of that coin, right? Greening ICT solutions, but missing kind of the enabling aspects of environmental sustainability through digital technology. So there's a gap at the country level in terms of addressing those two sides. And we also see a gap in terms of 133 countries still lacking digital transformation strategies at large. Now, what do we see? What is UNEP's recommendation in terms of how countries should begin to look at these questions in their national digital transformation strategies? 5 quick points. First and foremost, those strategies should begin to adopt very clear environmental goals that looks at both sides of that coin. They need to be looking at data as an enabler of SDG goals, circular economy, and commitments to multilateral environmental agreements. They need to be looking at data that is needed to actually calculate the impact of the digital sector itself. So the kinds of data that links to greenhouse gas emissions, e-waste, water consumption, energy use. They need to be looking at green digital infrastructure. And then finally, what kind of capacities and capabilities do countries need to actually harness these opportunities and use digital transformation for decision-making, product transparency, environmental disclosures, etc. So 5 ideas on how just national digital transformation strategies can evolve. And I'm almost at my last slide. At the international level, there is a new global coalition for digital environmental sustainability that was founded in March 2021. A number of entities are a part of this. And really, this new global body is looking at 3 major shifts. One is aligning these 2 transformations. The second is mitigating the impacts. And the third is really innovating with purpose. And there are 9 impact areas this CODES coalition has now adopted. I won't go through each of them because we don't have the time, but I will put them on the screen. These are the core priorities that CODES would like to take forward in 2023. Now, the final slide, connecting the dots to the Global Digital Compact. The Global Digital Compact, as I mentioned, will be adopted in 2024, and there's a whole series of milestones leading up to it. My call to action is really to start connecting the various international processes so they're all feeding in to the Summit of the Future and into these issues papers so that digital sustainability, both sides of that coin, is firmly integrated within the Global Digital Compact process. So I would implore colleagues, whether you're working in ITU, whether you're working in national governments, begin to engage in the Global Digital Compact process and begin to feed ideas into that process to ensure digital sustainability is well reflected. That's the end of my presentation. If you'd like more information on digital for sustainability, we do have a new e-learning program. This will be distributed afterwards, but the link is at the bottom. If you'd like to join the Coalition for Digital Sustainability, the link is also there. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David, for your good presentation. I have one question for you before you go. How can UN system improve its engagement with the private sector to harness opportunities from the digital technology for environment sustainability?
That's a very good question. I think Dominique pointed to one area where we can collaborate with the private sector, and that is in the adoption of standards. I think that's a critical one. Those are key enablers, especially for digital product passports and for circular economy. So I think collaboration in the standards domain is one. And I think the other two, either we can identify very specific SDG goals and targets where we can collaborate with the private sector. For example, we have a collaboration with Google on SDG 661, where they're helping us extract water data from satellite images using artificial intelligence. So that's a very specific area where we can collaborate. And then the other idea is kind of a sector-wide collaboration where we work with multiple technology companies to achieve a common goal. And we're doing that kind of intervention in a partnership called Playing for the Planet, where we have 39 gaming companies. We're starting to integrate environmental activations and awareness directly inside video games to try to reach those 3 billion gamers in the world. So I think there are 3 different areas or 3 different ideas for how we can improve our collaboration with the private sector.
Without going to another presenter, I think I should request the audience, for those who have the questions, they should use Q&A functions. And presenter will just see them on chat, or they can also answer them on chat in order to utilize our time. Let us go. Thank you very much, David. I'm going to present second speaker. Our second speaker is Leandro Navarro, a professor and research at UPC, and is the co-reporter of ITUT question 7, study group 5. In fact, that's where I participate also. Is going to present the importance of circular economy for sustainable digital transformation. Welcome, Leandro.
Thank you.
The 10 minutes is also applicable for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, so I hope you can follow my slides. I'm part of the academia. I'm part of the research and standardization activities in ITU as well. And well, I'm also a citizen which is worried about what's going on with the planet. what's going on with technology as well. So I'm going to talk about the idea of transformation, the sustainable digital transformation of communities, regions, countries, with help from ICT technologies, to take into account sustainability, considering the 3 pillars of environmental, social, and economic. So, well, first of all, like the discussion on sustainability of ICT, which has been mentioned before. Yeah, I mean, just considering greenhouse emissions here, but you've seen probably on many other graphs like this. ICT, it's critically dependent on electricity. So, well, as long as energy is efficient, we can be efficient, but of course, there are additional challenges. And well, green electricity, green energy, which is one of the SDGs, tends to have like about 80% effect on like the impacts on the ICT part. But of course, in addition to energy efficiency, we need also material efficiency and ICT devices that we use in the networks, or is also in the cloud or internet providers that we use so often. So we humans were good in expanding, in adding new technologies on top of the previous ones, but it's not only that. But I mean, transformation has to do also with replacement, with upgrade of the existing ones. So we reduce the impacts, and we do not simply add to them. So this diagram that you can see, this inverted pyramid, says that we have to prevent waste by buying less, let's say, then use and reuse, and finally recycle. And so whatever we build or whatever we use, we have to build it in a sustainable manner, and we learn about how to do that. And we also have to use them for as long as possible. That is part of the circular economy, which means that sometimes we shouldn't forget about maintenance. We have to repair. We have to find new uses of devices as they get older. New people that can use these devices, we no longer use them, and so forth. As David mentioned before, in the previous Globally Waste Monitor, there was a mention about only 17% of raw materials being really reused, so recovered. So we'll see this year there is a new edition of the Globally Waste Monitor, how the numbers are, but we are still far from a circular model, and we need to devices, parts, materials last more than one cycle, many cycles. And well, until we cannot do that, we cannot really claim. We claim that we want to have a circular economy, but we cannot claim we have one. We are just in the beginnings of it. So whatever the greenest possible ICT sector we can have can come to help with efficiencies of digitalization to other sectors of society. And we have seen it with the web, with mobile and fixed internet, with digital data, with communications. The ICT sector seems to have a transformative effect on society if things are done right. And but digital transformation is more, or a sustainable digital transformation is more about a profound than just digitalization. It talks about the changes and effects of digitalization on society, on the environment as well. So, and the other thing is that digital transformation critically depends on having digital infrastructure and digital tools, which is not available for everyone. So, as people and communities learn, well, the benefits and issues also change, and it's been mentioned before. It changes also the balance of power, the balance of control. It enables new ways. Therefore, every stakeholder, everyone should be involved in designing what we want to achieve to make sure that a sustainable digital transformation becomes part of a good change. in line with the SDGs. And by the way, in ITU, we are working on a definition of a sustainable digital transformation. That is one of our work items. So welcome to join us. And the other thing is that a sustainable digital transformation might help us in decoupling natural resource usage from environmental impacts and economic activity and human well-being. We have to achieve that decoupling to make sure that we do not get burned in the climate change transition, which is not one that we decide. In fact, one we want to avoid. And specifically, the circular economy, not only for ICT, but for other sectors, has the potential of these profound and radical changes in the way not only that products are developed, but also in the way they are exchanged, the business models, in the way that supply chains, value chains work, and how products look like. But not only that, but also these profound changes means that we have to change our mindset. Instead of gathering and owning so many things individually, let's say for the safety and comfort of the planet, we have to find ways to share them in different ways, to act driven by social and environmental responsibility, not only about the greed of accumulating things. I know that sounds too idealistic, but we have to find a way out of this situation. And in particular, I mean, we're focusing on something we can do or something we do. It's at ITU, mostly in question 7, we are working on circularity and supply chains. And then you can see here like a map of several initiatives that happened in the past that are happening now. For instance, you can see in like these LCDs recommendations, that these standards that you can see that they deal with different topics. You can see the code of the standard and the year where it was released. Some of them are in blue because they refer to aspects which have to do with digitalization, which are probably closer to the topic of sustainable digital transformation. Particularly the work on the digital product passport. We have 2 work items, one that started in 2021, another one that started last year in coordination with the European Telecommunications Standards Institute. We are covering batteries, public procurement, for instance, the role of academic institutions that in helping develop local knowledge, local ways of bringing sustainability into communities, regions, countries. There are many aspects. In green, the ones that are currently in development. So the ones in black are already published. The ones in green are still being written. So you can only access the summary of it, but not yet the final document. But well, I mean, just a quick overview. So in the end, everything is all about finding harmonized ways to share experiences, to propose best ways to achieve results. And in fact, one example of digital transformation is having these meetings. These meetings wouldn't be possible without these digital tools. It's a kind of magic. And the standards development as well has been positively impacted by digitalization. We do things differently than even before the pandemic. And then, well, I mean, if digital can help, let's put it into practice. But of course, being careful, avoiding the bad aspects of it, the rebound effects, I mean, the risks of making things worse. So we need new ways, we need many new ways, many research activities, experiments. So because they have to work at a smaller scale, and climate change requires to make them work at planetary scale as soon as possible. And that scale, that global scale, means we need to hurry up in concerted action, in reaching agreements, in harmonization, Part of it is the standardization work, as we do in ITU and many other standard development organizations, but also the dialogues that David mentioned on the Global Digital Compact and many others, because we have to transform our society in the direction of sustainability through digitalization. That seems to be something that we can do, that we succeeded in doing. Let's make sure that it also helps reaching sustainability. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
Hello. You're done? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
Anita, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yes, Leandro. Thank you very much for your good presentation. We have some questions from audience, from Q&A. You can as well check if there's a way to answer them, you can do, but as per now, we can give the priority for presenters. After that's when we will talk about those questions which are online. But I have one question for you. And by the way, would you like to excuse, there's somebody who was asking if there's any language apart from English. There's no other language apart from English. This event is being held in English only. Thank you. Then Leandro, do you talk about the circular economy of ICT products? But then how can ICT help other product sectors transform towards the circular models?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah. In fact, for instance, I can give you one example. Is we are working on 2 work items related to the digital product passport, which is what we can win from making everything related to products available in digital format. I mean, having all manuals, all details to assist in all the processes. And ICT products are very complex ones. Very critical materials are used in building them. They can potentially last quite long. They are made from complex parts, so they meet all the requirements of a complex product. And in fact, we are learning from focusing on them. And many of the lessons learned in ICT products in themselves, in their digitalization, are going to help in digitalizing other product categories. And so in a way, our results can be transported to other sectors, and in the end, transforming digital supply chains, transforming the way we interact with devices and choose them and make them last longer and so forth. That's not only specific for the ICT products, but is specific for any product category. So I hope we can provide good examples for the future. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We are running out of time. That's why we are rushing. But you have to stay around so that any question, or you can as well check on Q&A. Any question you can as well answer online. Thank you. The third presenter is Christian Mason. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name well. I'm so sorry. He's the partner and head of hyperconnectivity at Ditacon. He's going to present examples and learnings on enablement effect of ICTs and digital technologies. You're welcome, Christiana.
Yeah, thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anita, also for a very kind introduction. I hope everyone can see the slides. Perfect. Yeah, so as you introduced, I would basically pick up where some of my colleagues beforehand already presented where we are standing in terms of ICT, its impact, its enablement, but also reflect a little bit coming from an international consultancy on how the different industries pick up on the topic actually at the moment. So what we know basically from the different industries, if it might be manufacturing, if it might be the health industry or logistics, it doesn't matter. It seems to be a quite similar story we see in the different ones. So as we learned already from the colleagues beforehand that it kind of starts with our industrial revolutions, which usually, when you follow me from the bottom of this chart, had a negative impact, usually on our environment, on sustainability at all, where we went so far. With ICT coming up really and picking up with the fourth industrial revolution, we are saying we have basically the double point of being a curse and a blessing so far, with what we learned also from David, for example, that of course ICT has an impact on its own. And even more data centers, of course, have a higher impact. But the question is, what do they enable in the end? Because ICT for green is what we are really looking for. And the question is, we are facing basically today, how to cope with both transformations we are going through at the same time and really make the best of it in our very immediate future. Best to start today, actually. How to make ICT as an enabler for sustainability and basically the harbinger of where we can get with a higher impact. So that's where we strive for, bringing both of these together under the umbrella we call digitainability, coined by our dear colleagues from the University of Bonn, nearby in Germany. So because both of them are intrinsically working together if we want to build ourselves a better future in terms of the environment, economy, and also the social impacts we are seeing at the moment. So that's also how we treat it in going forward and bringing the both of them together. Because if you educate people, colleagues, industries about one, you always have to go along with the other as well to create the impact we are seeing and really follow this ambidextrous approach we are seeing. So first of all, as you know, green ICT, that's the sustainable digital transformation, but using it also to generate and see the data which can drive a digitainable transformation with the transparency we need to see also what our actions, what our decisions have as an effect. And then we can truly enable sustainability with all of these benefits we see right now, with high efficiency, hopefully also reduced costs at the same time, boosting our resilience and striving for innovation and future competitiveness in the field. And coming also from the different industries and usually building a bridge to them, we always had to look at how can we reach them. Coming from the greenhouse gas emissions, the first idea was basically enable them to see what's going on. Then they make a new decision for new systems in terms of digitalization. With new ICT might be a new network they're rolling out, replacing the old one, might be now the use of AI. What is the real impact behind it, and coming up with a carbon enablement calculator, which can be used for different industries. So also overcoming the challenge to have the direct and the indirect effects covering scope 1 to 3. And that goes along with a intricate but data-based evaluation framework built on the existing standards we have right now. And as I will later also show you, feeding back into a very specific international standard, just to bring forward also the applicability of a whole endeavor we're having right now. And yeah, the benefit should be basically on both sides as we see it off the table. First, for the technology providers, so that they can show also to their users actually what is a good technology, what is even a sustainable technology, not only in terms of a primary effect of a substitute for another product class or solution, but also in general with added benefits to it. And of course, also for a user, making the decision, may be making a transition and a play for their new digitalization effort, that they can now make maybe the greener choice for going through the process they're having. And as we said, we try to reflect on it directly with a hands-on example we had at hand here in terms of a digital transition. Let's call it a typical logistics warehouse. Here, it's one we assume to be in Germany, of course, relevant towards the energy mix we considered for the CO2 emissions, and also the size of a whole footprint it has. With a use case where the old ICT infrastructure was boosted, enhanced, and kind of also replaced in the transition period towards a 5G based one, where edge computing and computer vision was enabled on the way. So first, of course, first effect is usually when we substitute it doing the lifecycle analysis, where we would like to have even more data available and having to consider actually in this systematic approach in the use case, the whole system, have to define it, have to know what kind of hardware goes in, but also what kind of software algorithms even not running on site, maybe in the cloud, add to it. To have an overall idea of its impact in terms of emissions, in terms of waste, resource consumption, and also the energy required in the process. The more interesting part comes when we talk about secondary effects. So what, by the use of this new technology, let's stick with a 5G scenario here in the warehouse, are coming up, what kind of efficiencies am I gaining? For example, having improved processes due to easier and scalable handheld device operations. So whether faster in the feedback loops, they had higher transparency in what we're doing on site, not having to waste time, for example, going to check different other devices and so on. But also in terms of improving the comfort and ergonomic situation of the workers. Having, due to the transparency of the processes, also the chance to remove unnecessary process steps or having automatic feedback on it, while reducing errors in packing and reducing also compensation claims, especially vital in logistics for unnecessary shipping, which has several positive effects on the environment, taking care of that. And also reducing search times, also via vehicles on the vast grounds to find some goods which were beforehand unavailable in the system. And even more interesting, the tertiary effects. So what's the long-term effect? How are these secondary benefits actually used? Are they used, as we learned before, as a rebound? So basically just using what we had before to make more and use more, basically a zero-sum game in the end? Or do we keep some of these ecological benefits and use it also to foster the further sustainability goals we're having in mind? And just to give you an overview for a very short consideration of that case, and very conservative calculation became towards the total enablement of circa 15% or 72 tons of CO2 in that scenario alone, which wouldn't have been obvious at the beginning if it would just be by the substitute of one connectivity solution to another, even not considering the whole system. There would have been another outcome before, but here we could show that the enablement is positive when you went that way. And as promised, here just a short overview of a framework which is in alignment and is trying to feedback all of what we find into the ITU L1480 standard. We most likely will hear more about from Pernille following me directly. And I also would be very happy to see it come to fruition in the end. And yeah, just end my presentation also with my wish in the end, how we get to that. But we should start with measuring, collecting the right data to understand what impact we have, and enable also the industries to make better decisions in that regard for all of us, and then integrate it strategically in making this choice henceforward to build this greener world. And as usual, to start big with it, to think big, but start small and start directly, getting connected and scaling it fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christiana. for your interesting presentation. You have two questions. One question is, what is a suitable entry point for ICT enablement considerations in the industries? Then the second question, how could it develop even further in future?
Okay,
Thank you.
Just shortly addressing the first one. I would see it as a first point with this kind of consideration, starting with a procurement process of companies. So then they have to make the choice. That should be an integral part to actually calculate the ICT impact on the environment and the different sustainability goals we're having, and creating a standard out of it. For the second one, of course, when it's only a momentous decision, then we make a change. What do we do in between? And I think that's where it needs to develop with even further data and understanding how the different data streams, interdependencies work on the different orders of effects, so that we can also have a real-time monitoring, as we've seen and wished for also before, because that would be great. Then whatever we do, when we work in a process, when we make a decision, or however we operate something, we know, is it in the green area? Is it greener? Is it less green? So that we have direct feedback. So that's what we would like to see and also contribute to.
Wow. Thank you very much. Then our last present, anyway, your questions on the audience, you can as well check, but we will tackle them after all presentations. Okay, thank you very much again. Then our last presenter and a very important speaker, because he's only one ready in 3 men. So Pernilla Beckermark. Pernilla Beckermark is a principal researcher ICT sustainability impacts at Ericsson, and is also the co-rapporteur of ITU Study Group 5, question 9. Is going to talk about the role of digital technologies and the importance of robust methodologies to keep the ICT sector on track to reach on net zero. And is going to brief us overview of ITU standards on this topic. Welcome, Pernilla. Hello.
Yeah, so can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And I will try to be brief since we are a bit on delay. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so I have been asked to talk to you about how to keep the ICT sector on track to net zero, and especially the role of ICT, of course, and give a brief overview of some standards that are important in this context. So to start with, ITUT Study Group 5 has developed a standard specifically to give guidance and criteria for ICT organizations on how they can set net zero target and strategies. So net zero is a concept which is defined at the organizational level as a state that an organization has reached when it has reduced its value chain emissions following a science-based pathway as much as technically feasible, or with any remaining residual GHG emissions that are attributable to that organization being fully neutralized by like-for-like removals. And that means permanent removals if there are any fossil carbon emissions remaining. So this is very important, and it is also different from something called carbon neutrality, which is also referring to the concept of offsetting and so on. So net zero is really where the world is heading right now. And we could see that not only from the work of ITU, but we also have, of course, the Race to Zero campaign, the Science Based Targets Initiative Net Zero Standard, which the ITU work refers to. And very importantly, the UN, United Nations high-level expert group on net zero emissions presented their report Integrity Matters in the last COP, and also ISO presented their net zero guidelines. So there is a lot of pressure to go towards net zero for all organizations at this point. And of course, very important for us from a climate perspective. Already before engaging in the net zero topic, ITU started by developing a trajectory for this decade on how to decarbonize or to reduce the ICT sector footprint. What it mainly says is that we have to reduce our emissions by 45% overall from 2020 to 2030. And this is based on work which is aligned with scientific pathways. It was developed jointly by ITU, GSMA, GESI, and the Science Based Targets Initiative. It has a starting point from 2015, where ICT sector represented about 1.4% of overall emissions, which is a lower number than you have heard before, but we think it's a more accurate number. And it seems also that we are roughly at that point right now. So this figure is maybe a less designed version of a figure you already saw presented by our chair, Dominique, earlier. But it will highlight that there are both positive and negative effects of ICT, and we have to work on both sides, of course, to get the best possible outcome. I will go into these the main definitions that we have for these different aspects. So in ITU, we are reusing the vocabulary from first defined within the frame of OECD, and also used quite frequently in research. So we talk about the first order effects, the second order effects, and the higher order effects. And the first order effects are the what's sometimes referred to as the footprint. It's the direct environmental effects associated with everything from the mine to the disposal. So that's raw materials, production, use, and end-of-life treatment. Then the second order effect is the direct effect that comes from using ICT services and the effect that that could have in different sectors of the society. Then the higher order effects are those that are more transformative changes in behaviors and so on throughout society due to the existence of ICT services. And that includes something called the rebound. So on the second order effect level, it might be if you participate in this meeting now online and you would otherwise have traveled physically, then you would save some fuel. That is a second order effect. But if you then would make an extra journey because you didn't take this one, maybe to go to the store to buy something, then that would be a rebound effect, something that reduce the positive effect that was gained by not traveling to this meeting. And greenhouse gas emissions, what we see here is a sort of image that outlines the overall greenhouse gases from globally. And you can see that the majority of emissions are related to energy and industrial processes. They could then be divided into different sectors of society, like power generation, industry, transport, buildings, and others. And to put the different effects of ICT into perspective, we see that the footprint of the ICT sector is relatively small. But then the indirect effects or the direct effects on other sectors when you use ICT is substantially larger. We have heard a figure earlier today on 20%. We can debate the exact size of it, but it's clear that the effect on other sectors is much bigger than ICT's own footprint. And then, of course, as ICT technologies are proliferating technologies throughout society, changing the way we lead our lives, there are also secondary effects on other sectors. To be able to try to quantify all these different effects, ITUT has developed a series of recommendations, the L1400 series, which are dealing with this from different perspectives. We are looking from a sector perspective, from a product perspective, and from an organizational perspective. And within these different perspectives, we are also focusing on different types of impacts. I will not go into all of them right now, but I will give you some examples and you will have the slides afterwards. So the sort of core of the recommendations from study group 5 in this area is the L1410, which is giving a guidance on how to calculate the life cycle assessment on environmental impacts for information and communication technology goods, networks, and services. It consists of a part 1, which looks at the footprint itself, and a part 2 that give initial guidance on comparative analysis to compare different products, for instance. And with that as a basis, we also have a standard on how to assess ICT organizations. So that is something for the carbon footprinting reporting of organizations. It's aligned with the GHG protocol, and it takes a full value chain perspective. The current edition is from 2012, and we are working on a revision. And very importantly, we have been working with GSMA and GESI on specific scope 3 guidance for operators. And the scope 3 is the value chain emissions, and these are the key challenges. So this guidance will be very convenient, we believe. So stay tuned to hear more about that. And I will go to the next one that I wanted to present. And this is the L1450, which is a standard on how to calculate the ICT sector footprint. And as you heard before, we can hear different estimates of that. But by having a solid methodology, looking into the full life cycle perspective, setting the boundaries to include all user devices, data centers and networks, we have a solid basis to see to develop comparable numbers. And we can also see that if we do that and follow this one, I saw in the chat that someone said that we could compare only data centers with the footprint of aviation. And that is actually not true, because that would the aviation numbers are more like the energy consumption of the smartphones. So it's not taking the full life cycle perspective. So the aviation sector is considerably larger in terms of emissions, which is not an excuse, of course, for the ICT sector to not work on its own footprint. And the standard here, that is the one that Dominique mentioned earlier, the L1480, which is one of our newest standards. So it is about how to calculate impacts from ICT services or solutions when using ICT in other sectors, whether it is for transportation, to reduce building emissions, or in the energy sector and so forth. It gives a very detailed assessment guidelines on to make sure that we have a comprehensive way, a rigorous way of assessing these impacts. What is important to say is that the second order effects that we are talking about here, they cannot be measured. They can only be put in contrast to a baseline, which would be the situation without the ICT solution in place. And since the two of them cannot exist at the same time, at least one of them will always be hypothetical. So this is an assessment which is based on assumptions of a situation that would be in place if the ICT solution would not be there. So I'm now running out of time, so I will stay there, and thank you very much for listening. And if you are interested to learn more about our work with the standards that we are developing in STI, especially within this domain, you are welcome to reach out. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Begamak, for your good presentation.
Thank
and
you.
We are out of time, by the way. I don't know how we are going to handle. Maybe Reina is going to advise me accordingly how we are going to handle the questions from audience, which are online. But before I go to questions which are on the chat, let me ask you two questions. What are standards and methods important for net zero transformation? That is one question. Then the second, what future standardization activities do you see as important from a net zero perspective?
Yeah, so from the perspective, what's important for why it's important to have standards from a net zero perspective. So it's obviously, but it's very important from the perspective that we need to. Sorry, so we have to leave the room in 1 minute since we are delayed. So it's from the perspective of being understanding what we need to reduce, how much we have reduced, and to keep track of that, to prioritize and so forth, and on what's happening next. So we heard about the ISO net zero guidelines, the report from the high-level expert group. So we will revisit our own net zero standard, but also important is the work that is ongoing on simplified LCA and also on biodiversity, because a close link between biodiversity and net zero. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me get this opportunity to thank all presenters and all speakers for a good and perfect presentation. Thank you all. And I would like to request Reina to advise me accordingly, based on the time we are.
Thank you, Anita. As the question in the chat has been answered by the speaker, so that I think we have it covered. If there are any questions, feel free. All the presentations will be made available. But if we still have all the speakers, quickly, I just want to take a group picture very quickly before we close. If all the speakers can, I think Pernilla had to leave, but I don't know, David, if you're still there. There's David in a windy Geneva, I guess. So let me take a nice picture of you, or we'll get out of the picture though. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. So thank you to all the speakers of this session. I hope that the participants has found it interesting. If you have any question, as I said, please send it to each speaker, or also check on the website. There will be the presentations. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Paulo Gemma, Mr. Paolo Gemma is a working party chairman, working party 2 chairman of ITT Study Group 5, and he will be summarizing the session and delivering us some closing remarks. Paolo is also a senior specialist and representative of Huawei on issues related to energy saving and environmental sustainability, and he has been also an expert of Study Group 5 for several years, so we are very happy to count with his participation and experience. So Paolo, you have the floor. You are on mute, I think, because we cannot hear you. No, we cannot hear you at all. No. I don't know if it's just me, but I cannot hear you. No, Leandro said it's none of them. We still can now. Speak again. I thought that there was something coming. No, nothing. So apologies. Let us see if Paolo can check his audio because it was fine before. Now it seems it's coming. Paolo, can you speak? No? Now?
Okay. No, now, no.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect, Paolo. Now we can.
I have no
Can
idea.
you hear? Can you hear us? Paolo, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but I have impression that my PC decided not to work with a microphone.
Okay, but we can hear you very well now, so
Is okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I
thank
leave you the floor. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. And thank you, all of you. Thank you, Reina, for very nice word to remind me how old I am. And thank you for all of you for your passion to join us today for this important STI Day site event on building the pathway to sustainable digital transformation. This event provides, we hope, the ideal platform to share knowledge and best practice to address the complex challenges of achieving sustainable digital transformation. I hope that you have found this discussion interesting, informative, and sometimes provocative in some place. I'd like to take this moment to thank the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, who have jointly organized this site event with ITU, which took place as part of ITU's seminar series of digital transformation. And thank you to Anita that likely set to drive us during this session. In this not easy work to manage all the timing. As we have from our panelists, digital transformation is no longer just a buzzword or a trend, but it is now a real necessity for government and sector to keep up with in today's rapidly evolving world. However, we must also recognize that digital transformation can have a significant environmental impact that they need to be carefully managed to ensure sustainable outcome. Our panelists have highlighted some key considerations that need to be kept in mind and we embark on our digital transformation journeys. This includes the importance of implementing circular practices in all aspects of the value chain, and the enabling effect of ICT and the role of digital technology in keeping the ICT sector on track to reach net zero. The session brought to light the importance of standardization, while also underscoring the necessity of regional participation in our pathway towards sustainable digital transformation. I encourage all of you to take the insight and learning from this session and apply them. By working together to build a sustainable digital transformation pathway, we can create a better future for ourselves, our community, and the planet, and pave the way to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal. Once again, I like to thank your panelists for sharing their expertise with us today. And thank you, all of you, for your participation and engagement. Let's continue to work together to create a more sustainable digital future, because all contributions are welcome and is necessary. Thank you very much for all of you, and a good rest of the day or the night, depending where you are. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Paolo, for the closing remarks. So before we leave, let me do some marketing, as usual, will Paolo say. But if you enjoy this session, you will enjoy 2 more sessions that we have on tomorrow, 3rd of May. There will be a session on leveraging, building on a side event on building back smarter and more sustainable city to the United for Smart Sustainable City initiative. And on the 4th of May, there will be a side event on leveraging the metaverse in cities to achieve the SDGs. So I hope all of you are already registered, because these 2 sessions that will be very interesting. It will be very important for you to join now that the metaverse is the new hot topic, and it will be important to learn also from experts what's going around. So don't hesitate to check the websites. My colleagues have put them in the chat. So again, I would like to thank you all for being with us, and all the presentations will be made available on the event website, and also the recording of the presentation. We also have some other events coming on the sustainable digital transformation for the African region. Some WISIS event on the topic on biodiversity and batteries that Dominic presented, and also my lovely study group 5 meeting in June from 13th to 23rd June to 2023. So thank you so much, and have a nice evening or rest of the day for all of you that are maybe in Latin America. So the session is closed. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.